Hello, hello. Welcome back to Finding Spirit with Tabs. I'm your host, Tabs McCaffrey, and I'm a psychic medium here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. On this show, I share my own personal journey as I dive into mediumship, spirit guides, Akashic records, channeling, and now past life regressions as well. I like to consider myself a pretty grounded and practical psychic medium, and hopefully, through all these episodes, you find a grounded and practical approach to your own spirituality. All right, how's everyone doing? We are officially into the second half of October and into our third episode of the October series. Very excited to do these. Just fun diving into myths, history, mediumship, spirit, everything. A little bit of church and religion stuff. It's just been fun exploring together. Now, today's episode, I did allude to it in the last one, is going to be ghosts versus spirits. What's the difference? Because I feel like it's often construed together and misrepresented, maybe, or even confused for each other. They are very separate things, and we're going to talk about the differences today. And this is all coming from the perspective of someone who talks to the other side that communicates with spirits on the other side. So I feel like I have a little bit of skin in this game. I feel like I have a little bit of authority that I can speak about this topic and hopefully dismiss some of the fears that maybe you have around mediumship, spirits, ghosts, hauntings, all that kind of stuff. And I always smile when I talk about it because I think it's just such a misinformed topic. I'm not here to scare you today. I just want to explain a little bit of history, a little bit of science, and then my take on the end and how I explain it best. All right, so I did have to take some notes because some of these things I was like blown away when I started reading about them. I did not know how deep and the history, I guess, of spirits and ghosts and the other side. And I have explored, I guess, the mediumship side, but not necessarily like death and the afterlife in that sense. These are some of the favorites that I have. There are, I mean, I could sit here and talk for 3 hours about different cultural beliefs with death, but these were my faves, and I just want to share them with you guys, give you a little bit of information, shine a little bit of light into history. The first culture that I wanted to talk about is the Norse culture, sometimes known as the Vikings. They believed that the spirit world was seen as a natural extension of life, not something that was like separate and scary. Oh gosh, and you guys hear that? My voice. Throat chakra, spirits coming in. They believed when someone died that their soul traveled to a different realm, depending on how they lived and how they died. They also believed that the dead could visit the living, which I feel like this kind of matches with my own beliefs because they do. Their ancestors and spirits called Dragar, I believe, I think I'm saying that right, or the walkers, were believed to linger near burial sites not to harm the living, but to protect family lines or guard treasures that were in the burial grounds. These stories evolved over time and probably shaped some of our early ideas about ghosts and hauntings. And to the Norse, communicating with the dead wasn't unnatural. It was such a part of their culture. It was honoring the lineage and understanding the unseen, the spirits. Next cultural tradition is the Celtic traditions of Samhain, and this is probably one of the more popular ones. This marks the end of the harvest season and the start of winter. Kind of that in between space where everything starts to slow down and the world just starts to feel a little bit quieter, just as we shift right into those winter months. The Celts believed that around this time, the veil between the living and the spirit world was at its thinnest. I'm going to agree with this. I do think it is. I do find spiritual occurrences and communication is just a little bit easier. I feel like people that maybe don't normally experience it will experience it in October. And part of that is the thinning of the veil. This wasn't seen as scary. It was just a time where two worlds blended a little bit more. People would honor their ancestors, leave food or candles out for loved ones who have passed, and welcome their energy in. Now, they also believed that not every spirit had good intentions. They would light fires and wear masks to keep these mischievous or wandering energies from bothering them. So, kind of a little fun twist at the end. Over time, as Christianity spread, those Samhain traditions started to mix with church holidays like All Saints' Day, which was November 1st, and All Souls' Day. Eventually, that evolved into what we now call Halloween. It was about connection, remembrance, and keeping a healthy respect for the seen and the unseen world. So, kind of a fun twist on how they combined. I did not realize that. And then the last kind of cultural tradition that I want to cover is the Buddhist and Taoist traditions. There's something called Hungry Ghost Month. I know that sounds sounds crazy, but it's actually fascinating. I really enjoyed this one, which happens during the seventh lunar month, usually around August or September. It does change year to year because it doesn't follow the Gregorian calendar, I think is what I read. It's believed that during this time, the gates of the spirit world are wide open, and restless or hungry spirits are free to wander the earth. People take it very seriously, but it's not in a spooky way. It's about honoring and caring for those spirits. So families will leave out food, they'll burn joss papers, print offs of like clothes, houses, and even iPhones. Yeah, I was kind of blown away when I read that one. So their ancestors have whatever they need in the afterlife, right? So they will leave paper copies of anything they felt like their loved ones or ancestors would need. Communities also hold ceremonies and live performances to entertain the spirits and to keep the energy balanced. I like that. At the same time, there's this belief that you have to be respectful during that month. So, the whole month, no staying out late, no whistling at night, no moving houses, or swimming after dark. And they believe because spirits are more active during this month and maybe a little bit more unpredictable, that you didn't want to bother them so that they would bother you or possess you. I say that lightly. I do have an episode where I talked about demons and exorcisms and stuff like that. I'm going to pop it up here on YouTube and put it down in the show notes. It's my whole take on that. I think that it does apply into different cultures with different religious beliefs. I find this also fascinating because just like Sam Hain, it's really about just respecting the dead, respecting the unseen, understanding that there's more happening around us than what we see, and that the relationship between the living and the spirit world deserves the deepest respect, which I can stand beside that 100%. Keep in mind, these stories and these traditions and these cultural beliefs, they're not really about fear or evil. They were people's ways of trying to understand life and death more and finding ways to be connected with their loved ones or ancestors on the other side. So there's a little bit of that into each of them. Now, these are like the basis of these cultural traditions and beliefs, but they did change over the centuries. And I always have to talk about this because I believe it is the truth. There was a point when religion came in and religious framing came in. It shifted a lot of the ideologies with, I guess, the intentions or the viewpoint that the churches had or different religions had, and they started to kind of take a hold of these. Now, for a long time, the church wanted to be the main bridge between people and the divine. If you wanted guidance, forgiveness, or connection to the afterlife, you had to go through a priest or someone that was higher up in the church or religious constitution. The idea of someone communicating directly with the dead or having their own relationship with spirit, which would be like a medium, that threatened their control. To keep things contained, the church began teaching that spirit communication was dangerous or, even evil. And I hear that today. People who were naturally intuitive or had healing abilities, those who could sense energy or receive messages from the other side, were labeled as heretics or witches. If I was alive, 400 years ago, I would be a witch. Yeah, that label stuck, that fear, that stigma, that has stuck through. I cannot tell you again how many times I receive a comment or a DM through my socials talking about this type of fear that I'm communicating with the devil, that I'm being tricked by demons, that this is like dangerous, that it's evil, find Jesus. Like, I can't even tell you guys the comments that I receive. I really need to like track them one day and maybe just have a whole episode where I read these types of comments just so that everyone can see the fear base in it. And then I guess you could say that this is probably where a lot of the ghosts are scary thinking started. It was when the churches started to introduce it with a fear-based perspective. Next, I want to talk about the spiritualism movement, and this happened in the 1800s because I think this is where things started to turn. So we have original cultural beliefs, then we have church and religion that kind of starts to shape the narrative, twist the narrative, I guess. And then we have this movement that started in the 1800s, which I believe is continuing on now and probably stronger than it's ever been. But a few hundred years ago, in the 1800s, people started to push back against the fear. That's when the spiritualist movement really took off. During the mid 1800s, people were grieving on a massive scale: wars, epidemics, high child mortality rate, and they were desperate to know that their loved ones on the other side existed, were around them, were okay, that we're watching them. They truly just wanted that connection to the other side. And mediumship became public again. The most famous example was the Fox sisters in New York, who claimed to communicate with a spirit through knocking sounds in their home. This story did spread everywhere and kind of kicked off the seance culture, and we could do a whole episode into that as well. It really started to change and shift things. People were allowed to gather in parlors and try to reach their loved ones. Some of it was, real, genuine connection. And I'm positive that some of it was just showmanship and charlatans. There were candlelit rooms, there was table tipping, there was spirit photography. It was all part of, I guess, the show and the times, right? That's just what it was. And it was part entertainment. Even though some mediums were later exposed as frauds, the heart of spiritualism was about hope. It was hope that you could connect with your loved ones on the other side, that death wasn't the end, and that love continued on, right? And that our loved ones continued on. And I think that belief is really what laid the foundation for modern mediums today. It's also the point where we started trying to blend science and spirit, measuring the phenomena, documenting seances, treating mediumship as something worth studying instead of fear, which had been placed with the witch trials. I feel like before we move forward into that energy, we need to talk about ghosts, hauntings, and residual energy. And I've touched on this before. I think it's important that we do a bigger section on this because this is something I hear the most from other people. When people hear the word ghost, I'm giving air quotes, ghost, they instantly picture something that's like spooky, right? Like a figurine, an apparition, a shadow in the corner, or, a cool breeze in the hallway, or a door that creaks, or stairs that creak in the middle of the night. That energy, I want you to think of it this way. What if that energy isn't actually a conscious spirit at all? What if it's more like an energetic recording, something that's replaying itself over and over? And this is how I see it. What I call it is residual energy. I've heard other people talk about it. I'm not inventing the wheel here. I'm just sharing some information about what may be interpreted as spooky, but giving you a little bit of a different perspective on maybe situations that have happened in your life. And by all means, if you guys want to share stories in the comments, please do. So, when we talk about residual energy, it doesn't have an awareness, it's not trying to communicate, It's just a moment, an emotion, or an energetic imprint that is left behind. And I want you to think of it like walking into a room, two people have an argument, and you can feel the tension even after the argument is over. That would be residual energy. Now, in older homes or historical places, those energetic imprints can be strong. You rarely hear about these energetic imprints in brand new home builds. It's usually in that old kind of creepy house. And sometimes people will hear like footprints, or they'll hear a door that always shuts, or they'll see a shadow in a certain area of the house. It's always in the same spot or the same time. There's always like a pattern to it. That's often just a loop that's playing over and over. It's like an echo in time. That's how I want you to think of it. It's just like time doesn't exist, all timelines, but there is some sort of imprint in that timeline, in that energetic space. I hope that makes sense. Now, that's totally different from spirit. Okay, spirit is conscious, spirit is aware, spirit is full of personality. Spirit interacts with you. Residual energy does not. It's just an occurrence that happens in your house or in an area wherever you're experiencing it. The reason so many of us confuse these two is because for centuries, stories and movies have told us that anything that we don't understand must be haunted or scary. And I feel like we've all been programmed with that programming. If you see your lights flicker or something falls off a shelf, it'll freak you out, right? Because that's what we've been told. That's spooky, that's scary, that's a ghost, that's, a haunting or something happening. But energy behaves in ways we're still learning about. So we don't understand all the ways that energy can react in rooms. Sometimes it's environmental, maybe electromagnetic fields are changing, static buildup, or even our own energy reacting to a space. And this is something I think we need to explore further on another day. There can be other explanations than the ones that our fear based brain is first going to. So, when you experience something that feels off, I want you to pause and ask yourself, does this feel interactive? Like something wants my attention? Or does it feel like maybe it's leftover energy? And if you've had occurrences that have happened, I want you to give an unbiased reflection to the event. If it's spirit, you'll often notice that it has a message. Maybe it happens around something meaningful. Maybe your family's having a conversation. Maybe you're thinking about them. The lights flicker, something happens, you find a feather. Like there's different ways that they can pop up and show you that they're there and that they're listening and that they're supporting you. But spirit connection feels more purposeful and often comforting. Sometimes it can be surprising, but oftentimes it just feels like affirming. Now, residual energy, on the other hand, feels repetitive, like the space is carrying a history. There's two ways you can look at it. There's the person that feels connection, that feels joy, that feels like their loved one's trying to reach out to them. And then you have the person that is in fear, anger, doesn't see it that way. So I could be in a room with someone, we could be talking about something and the lights flicker, and I'll say, "Oh, hi, grandma," like, just acknowledging a loved one coming in. And someone else might be like, "That was spooky. My light always does that. I don't know what's going on. I swear this house is haunted." See the two different perspectives? I think a lot of it too is how we view the situation. Now, I know people have had very physical experiences. And again, I want you to remove the filter of fear and look at it. Was I in a fear base? What did I see that as fearful? Was it a warning? Was this someone that I love warning me or trying to help me in that situation? There's just some different ways. And again, I know everyone has very unique experiences, and I cannot speak to every single experience. I can just speak to the ones that I have had myself or clients that have shared things with me. But oftentimes, when we change that perspective, when I'm, speaking about a client, they're in a spiritual awakening, they're sharing some of the things that are happening. When we do just small shifts in their perspective, they start to view things in a non-fearful way. It starts to kind of click in and make sense. I think that over the decades and the centuries, those layers of fear have built up. So when someone says that old house has a presence, they're probably right, but it just might not be a ghost. It might just be that energetic imprint from an event that happened centuries ago or, 150 years ago. For me, when I enter into a space, I can usually tell within seconds whether I'm feeling energy or spirit. Spirit usually feels warm, intelligent, it's very responsive. It will start up a conversation with me within my mind. Residual energy feels static. It's like walking into a photograph. I That's the best way I can explain it. It doesn't respond and it doesn't move. You just feel it. So I hope that gives you a little bit of perspective when you're picking up things, in someone's house or in a building or in a business or when you're out and about and you feel something. And at the end of the day, I just want to remind you that energy never really disappears. It just changes and shifts, transforms, I guess you could say. And sometimes we can catch glimpses of it from past timelines. So I'm going to just get a little theoretical here. Um, Time doesn't exist, all timelines happening at the same time. If a past event is happening at the same time as a current event, do you see how you could pick up on that? So it's actually happening. I know this is gonna be crazy. It's happening at the same time in the same room, and you're both there, but in different timelines or dimensions, you could say. That's another way of viewing them too. I have a few different perspectives, and until I have solid evidence and solid proof, guys, these are the best ways that I can explain it. And who knows, maybe I come back and do a video like this in 2 years and we have new scientific data and evidence that I can explain how it all works. But today, October 2025, we're just not there yet. Now, I also want to go into spirit communication. I feel like we cannot talk about ghosts and spirits without talking about communication. And spirit communication is not like random bumps in the night. It's not like creaky floors. It's not, shadows showing up when you walk around the corner. Spirit communication is intentional. It has personality, it has emotion, it has messages, guidance, purpose behind it. It's like a totally different energy and different type of communication. Spirit usually shows up with characteristics or traits of who they were. This can show up as like love, it can show up as humor, it can show up as an intelligence, maybe sharing stories. I had a dad one time beat his daughter to the punchline of a joke. So there was a joke after he died. He came into the reading and literally told her the joke. And he gave her a few puzzle pieces. It took a little bit of figuring out, but he literally told her the joke and beat her to the punchline because she was like, if he was around, I would bug him about this. Well, he came into the reading and it was like the second thing that he decided to bug her about. It was so wild. That's the intelligence of spirit. They remember who they are and they use that to validate for us that it's really them so that we know that it's them. I call myself an evidential medium because I bring through evidence from spirit to show you that that is them, that they are here with you, that they can talk about their life, they can talk about your life, they can share experiences. Even the dad that showed up and wanted me to talk about the steps because his family had to redo the steps, and they were like, I wonder if dad would approve of this. You can't make this stuff up. Like that comes right from spirit. The next question I get about spirit communication is how do you pick it up? Like, how does it come through? And this is what we call the clairs. So, spirit will use our clairs to communicate, and the clairs are your intuitive senses. For example, you might get like a vision coming through. That is going to be your clairvoyance. You might hear like a song playing in your head or a phrase that reminds you of them. That is going to be clairaudience. That's when it's kind of like playing in your mind. And then you might just feel like this emotion coming through, a sense of pride. Maybe there's like a feeling of regret around something. That's going to be your clairsentience. And sometimes we just know things. We don't know how we know, We just know. And that's going to be the claircognizance. My favorite claircognizance type of information that comes through is when it's a grandma and she wants to talk about gambling. And I'm like, your grandma played cards. She was a gambler. And they're like, absolutely. I was like, the one time I was like, your grandma loved to go to the casino. And she was like, 100% my grandma loved going to the casino. And grandma right away, I just know. I just know that's what grandma likes. Spirit uses whatever channels are most open for the medium. It's not about being special. We all have our clair abilities. We just have to find them, turn them on, and learn how to use them. And I'm going to plug in my Mediumship 101 class right now. If you're curious about mediumship, you feel like there's some stuff happening and you just want to know more or learn how to communicate with the other side, I have a Mediumship 101 class coming up on November 14th. There are a few spots left, and it is the last class for 2025. We will pick up again in January. So if you're trying to get this done in 2025, join the class. We learn about the clair abilities. I show you where they are. We discover them. We go into sitting in the power. We learn how spirit communicates with us and how to interpret it. And within the class, you get a practice partner and get to build that genuine connection for yourself. So it's a very hands on, immersive class, and it's about 4.5 hours. So if you're interested, I'll have a link down below. Join, save your seat today. Once you learn what those clair abilities are, the next is like, how do you interpret them? When spirit steps in a reading, they often bring the personality right along with them. So when they come into my awareness, it feels like I've known them forever. I'm going to pick up on characteristics, personality, certain traits about them. They may show me physical appearance stuff. They may share things about their life that are very deep and personal to them. And sometimes they want to go straight into talking about something that they know you need to hear guidance on. And I also love when they show up again with those inside jokes. When spirit shows up with humor, I'm like, yes, yes, I am here for this. Let's laugh. Let's have fun throughout this reading. It's such a good reminder and like a clear reminder that they're still there, that they're still themselves, that even in spirit, there's a part and an aspect of them that is human, right? That reminds you of their life here. Spirit communication doesn't come through all the time like a perfect phone call. It's not a word for word, face to face contact. It, again, is they're going to use those clair abilities, those clair senses. It comes through with a blend of like emotions, images, sounds, knowings, memories. Everything can be layered together. And then it'll be my job as a medium or a spirit communicator to interpret that and share it with my client or the person that I'm meeting with to provide a reading. That's what real spirit communication is about. It's not spooky. Honestly, there's nothing spooky about it. It's usually deeply emotional, personal, specific. It's laced with love. It sometimes isn't. Sometimes they weren't great people or you didn't have a great relationship. And they come in with that character, personality, sharing things about their lives. Every reading is unique, just like every person is unique in their own ways. They're not trying to haunt us. They're not trying to hurt us. They're just trying to remind us that they're still there and that there's still a connection, hopefully help you wherever you are right now in the moment, give you guidance, give you closure, whatever you're looking for. They're so smart. They know why you've come. They know why you're in that reading. And I think that's just the whole magic about mediumship and spirit. They truly know who we are, what we need, and why we're there. I guess, long story short, with the communication, when you are feeling something, when you're picking up on some energy, when you feel like there's a message or someone on the other side maybe is trying to get a hold of you, I want you to think like, does it feel light? Does it feel informative? Does it feel like there's a message or a meaning behind it? And then kind of picking away at what is residual energy, right? Does it feel kind of neutral? Does it feel heavy in a sense? Is it repetitive? Is it something that occurs, over and over without any cause or any reason? And it's starting to kind of separate the difference between spirit, I guess, and that residual energy. Just one more thing on this. Just because your light flickers, just because you hear a sound, just because, maybe there's a smell that comes through, it doesn't always mean that your house is haunted, that there's ghosts, that there's evil spirits around you. I want you to think of it like, could it be your loved one popping in to remind you of them, to confirm a thought or something going on in your life, or just to support you in the moment? Just something to think about. If you're picking up on shadows, I do need to talk about this one. Sometimes when we first start tuning into spirit energy and picking it up, it'll come across as shadows in the dark. I want you to think of it this way: they're not there to scare you. You're just perceiving the spirit world, and perhaps you didn't perceive it before. Maybe you've had it your whole life, but just think of it: there's two worlds layered. Spirit is always around us. It's whether you perceive it or not. Okay. So that's like a big spoiler. Even if you can't perceive it, it doesn't mean they're not around you. They're around all of us. It's two dimensions or two worlds, I guess you could say, that overlap, that overlay. Even when you see shadows, think of it this way: you're just in a crowded room. It's like being in the doctor's office. They're not there to hurt you, they're just going about their own lives. And different perspective. That is just, I had to toss this one in because I hear that one often as well. Moving along, this is going to be a bit of a longer episode, guys. I wanted to talk about ESP and new science. So, what is happening right now? We have always tried to understand beyond the physical world. There's no part in history where we have not been trying to make sense of it. And over time, our curiosity has shifted from purely spiritual to more of a scientific approach. People want proof. I am people. I want proof in this journey. I want things to be validated. And ESP, or extrasensory perception, became one of the first ways that science tried to study intuition and unseen communication. Some of the early research back in the 1930s, 1940s, they did some experiments that were conducted on telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition. They tried to measure if people could perceive information without their physical senses. Now, the findings were mixed, but it was also groundbreaking for its time. It opened the door for parapsychology and proved that there was something worth studying, even if we didn't fully understand it. Now, in modern exploration, they're now using conscious research, which is studies of near death experiences, or NDEs, and people reporting awareness even when their bodies were clinically dead. I have listened to so many podcast episodes on that. I think there's a podcast called We Do Not Die. And that one is really interesting because she just interviews people with NDEs. Lots of amazing, beautiful stories if you want to listen to that. Another avenue that they've been exploring for parapsychology is quantum physics. And you've probably heard this coming up in other types of content. Quantum physics shows that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. And it supports the idea that consciousness, or our energy, continues after death. Now, there is another avenue for this, which would be the parapsychology and the equipment. You have EMF meters, EVP recorders, thermal cameras. These are all tools that they're using to detect energetic changes. I'm going to say they're not perfect science, but they do show that there is an ongoing curiosity, and there are things that we can't explain and that we can't see, but we're still trying. And I actually bought one of those EMF meters. I think they sell them on Amazon. They sell them on like all the ghost hunter websites. And I used it. I tried using it. It didn't work. I was clearly communicating and receiving information, and the meter did nothing. So, if you're wanting one, I don't think the Amazon one is the best way to go. You probably got to spend a little bit more money and get something a little bit more sensitive to it. I'm putting this as a de-influence you in this episode. All right. Now, bridging science and spirituality. So, science is starting to catch up with spiritual traditions that we have always known. We are energy and energy doesn't end. Okay. That's the basics of it. Many scientific theories now explore non local consciousness, awareness that exists outside of the body. And I like to consider this source or higher counsel, higher self, like spirit guides. I think these are all non local consciousness. Mediumship will naturally align with these ideas, and we're tuning into a consciousness energy, consciousness field, right? So there's no body there, but it is still a consciousness. All right, wrapping it up, I wanted to give kind of my perception of today's episode. Our beliefs shape how we experience everything, okay? Whatever you believe is true. That's like at its simplest form. Whatever you believe is true. And that is including the spirit world, spirit, energy, energetic imprints, ghosts, hauntings, all that type of stuff. What we expect to feel often becomes what we actually experience. So, if you believe ghosts are scary, your body reacts in a fearful type way. And this can come from the slightest energy, like a small sound or a little flicker of a light. If you are fearful, you're going to have a fearful response. If you believe spirit is love, if you believe that spirit is positive, that spirit is our loved ones coming to connect, those same occurrences won't give you that response of fear. When they come through, you'll feel comforted, you'll feel validated. See how the change of just those simple belief systems change the whole experience that you're having with that energy. Our mindset literally sets the tone for how we interpret this energy, how we interpret the occurrences that are happening around us. The environment doesn't always change, but our perspective does. And what feels haunting to one person might feel peaceful and reassurance to the other. Again, depending on your intention. I want to share a personal story with this one. At the beginning of my journey, I would often see lights flickering, get chills, have like movements happening in my house. At the beginning, I was very fearful. I cried one day. I called a girlfriend. I opened up all the blinds in my house like I was losing my mind. I was fearful. Once I began communicating with spirit and understanding what was on the other side and, speaking with spirits and I say people on the other side, my whole perception switched. I'm no longer afraid of the dark. I no longer get creeped out when I see, well, okay, I still kind of get creeped out when I see shadows during the day, but now it's like, okay, what's going on? Who is that? Why are they here? What do I need to know? What do I need to pay attention to? That type of stuff. I don't have that fear base anymore. Lights flickering, I'm like, hi, grandma, hi, mom, tiny little shadow on the floor. Hey, Stella, which was our cat, or Callie, whoever I'm feeling is showing up. I've changed just the way I interpret the energy that's coming in. It now feels familiar instead of scary, absolutely scary. So, let's do, I guess, like a practical application for this. Your intention and energy will set the tone for your experience. If you approach the unseen world or the spirit world with curiosity, respect, love, understanding, that's the energy that's going to meet you. If you approach it with fear, shame, anger, I can't even think. I think fear is like the strongest emotion that people will feel with it. You're going to receive that back. You're going to receive fear based back. When something unexplainable happens, I want you to pause, take a breath, ask yourself, does this feel heavy or light? Does it feel fearful or peaceful and confirming to something? Most of the time, I bet your body already knows. If you can just ground yourself into a neutral state and let go of that fear, you probably will have a better understanding what's happening and why they're trying to communicate with you. So, just to recap, ghosts, residual energy, echoes of the past, okay? Echoes of past experiences. Spirit, conscious, loving, intentional, connection, guidance. It just feels different. I don't believe that souls get stuck. I haven't had a personal experience with it. So until I have a personal experience, I cannot speak on it. I cannot confirm it. I just can say I haven't experienced this. And it doesn't fall into my belief system yet. When people pass, their loved ones come to take them to the other side. And if they didn't have loved ones, their ancestors, everyone comes from a lineage of people, right? So they will come and take you to the other side. I know that I'll probably be burned at the stake, literally, but this is the stake that I am willing to be burned on. I don't believe that souls get stuck, okay? I'm going to say that. And until my mediumship proves otherwise, that's where I'm staying. And that kind of dismisses the whole like ghost, like, oh, it's just a soul that's stuck between two worlds. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's either residual energy or it's spirit that's around you. Those are your two options. Mediumship has shown me that the afterlife is about love, it's about connection, it's about healing, it's about validation. It's not about fear, and definitely not demons or trickery. And that's just a whole nother topic as well. Last thing I want to talk about, let's end this episode with something fun that you can do this month. I invite you to create an offering bowl. Add a few things of value that you're offering to the spirits in your life or the spirits around you. This may look like maybe the favorite candies that your grandmother loved, or maybe your pet's favorite toy or favorite treat in the bowl. There's so many ways that we can honor them by leaving gifts. Maybe you light a candle in the evening. That's also a fun one. Don't leave it unattended, of course, but maybe you light it for just an hour in the evening. Let's honor those that have passed before us. Let's honor our ancestors on the other side of the veil. And I think that's just a fun, easy way that we can participate in old cultural and traditional beliefs, still honor what spirit is. All right, guys, I am going to head out of here. This was a very long episode. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're new or you want to pop in and share a story, let me know where you're from. First of all, I always love to hear where everyone's from, and then feel free to share a story down below. I love hearing other people's experiences. Maybe you have a cultural belief that you want to share. Let's hear it. We grow when we share and have community together. Also, if you are new, only like 35% of you are subscribed to the channel. Please do so now. It helps me grow and reach more people. Also, feel free to like this video if you're on YouTube and drop a comment. We have one more episode coming in next week to wrap up this October series. I hope everyone is having a fun and safe October. And thank you for walking this path in finding spirit. And I will see you next week. Bye.